Hello, I'm Carter Threlkeld, and welcome to Introduction to Worship. Let's begin today's lesson. Imagine leading a worship team that plays with such intentionality and purpose that the music itself brings joy and breaks chains. What if I told you that in the Old Testament, instruments weren't just for background music, they were actual weapons of war? Today we are diving into the Old Testament to rediscover how to train our teams to use instruments not as decoration but as powerful tools for spiritual warfare, to shift the atmosphere just like David did for Saul. Let's learn how to play with true spiritual authority. In Genesis chapter 4, Jubal is described as the father of all those who play the lyre and pipe. In the biblical narrative, the phrase all who play the harp and flute, or harp and pipe, functions like a figure of speech. It uses two specific instruments to represent the entire spectrum of musical artistry across history. This phrase describes future generations of musicians through several layers of meaning. Today we're going to learn about the instruments that were available during the ancient era. Between the years 1000 BC and 100 AD, musical instruments across the Mediterranean, Mesopotamia, and Asia reached a high level of technical sophistication. This era saw the rise of professional musicians, the invention of complex engineering in music, like the hydraulic water organ, and the standardization of instruments used in military, religious, and domestic life. These instruments can be divided into three categories: stringed instruments, wind instruments, and percussion instruments. Let's begin with the stringed instruments, or chordophones, a word from the Greek roots chord, meaning string, and phone, meaning sound or voice. All the stringed instruments were primarily plucked with fingers, or with a plectrum, which means pick. Bowed instruments were not invented yet. The most popular instrument was the lyre, which is a type of harp. It typically featured a soundboard made from a tortoise shell or wood, with 3 to 11 gut strings. Here's a short video that demonstrates the lyre. Please take a minute to watch it. Another harp, called the kinnor, was the national instrument of Israel. It's a smaller lyre with 10 strings, and this is the instrument David played for Saul to drive away the evil spirit from him. Watch this demo of the kinnor. The kithara was a Greek harp, a professional version of the lyre with a large wooden sound box. The larger Jewish harp is called the navel. Here's a short demo about the navel. Rounding out the string family was the lute, which was a long-necked plucked instrument with rounded bodies and fretted necks, a forerunner of the guitar. And the psaltery, which was a zither-like instrument with many strings, sometimes up to 40, played on the lap. It looked like a mountain dulcimer. These instruments were designed to soothe the spirit, to dispel darkness, and facilitate prophetic inspiration. The second category is wind instruments, or aerophones. The word aerophone is a combination of the two Greek words aereo, or air, and phone, as we said before, sound or voice. We'll just call them wind instruments. The oldest wind instrument is the pipe or flute. They were made from bones, bamboo, wood, or even clay. The panpipes is a row of graduated pipes tied together, popular among shepherds in rural communities. The aulos is a double-piped reed instrument, very famous and often played with a leather strap around the cheeks to manage air pressure. It was central to festivals and theatrical performances. Here is a wonderful video that demonstrates the aulos and the kithara. And finally, I'm putting the water organ in the wind family because it is a set of pipes. It was invented in the 3rd century in Greece, and this was the world's first keyboard instrument. It used water pressure to maintain airflow through the pipes. Please watch this video that explains the hydraulis. Trumpets and horns were made from straight metal tubes and used for military signals. The cornu was a large G-shaped brass horn that wrapped around the player's body. It looks like a forerunner of the sousaphone. The chatsura was a straight silver trumpet primarily used by priests for calling the people to war and to worship. Watch these 2 short videos about the silver trumpets of the Old Testament. Finally, we have the shofar. The shofar was made from a ram's horn. The word is first mentioned in Exodus, when God uses the sound of the shofar to assemble all the people together at Mount Sinai. And it is the great shofar that Jesus will blow at the second coming, at the sound of the rapture. Watch this video that demonstrates the shofar. The third category is percussion instruments. Idiophones and membranophones. The word idiophone means something that vibrates itself, like if you knock on a piece of iron or metal or wood, it vibrates. A membraphone refers to a tight skin that is tied around the head of a drum. Bells and cymbals of all sizes are also part of this percussion family of instruments. The tav is a small handheld drum or tambourine, popular for celebrations and dancing. Here's a video that demonstrates the tav. The temple orchestra of Solomon was known to use at least 12 instruments, combined with a large male voice choir to provide a rich, loud sound during sacrifices and ceremonies. Today's instruments are much improved versions of the same 3 families of instruments that allowed musicians to play with much greater ease and virtuosity. As worship leaders, we are never to use our instruments to showcase our technical abilities, but rather to raise a sound of joy and to soothe the spirit of heaviness. Some people ask, what did the soundtrack of the ancient world actually sound like? We often wonder if people thousands of years ago heard melody and harmony the same way we do, or if their perception was entirely different. Maybe they inhabited a world where language was so profoundly melodic that a simple question didn't even raise pitch, nor did an answer drop the pitch. What chords and scales did they use? Well, the term musico-linguistic universal refers to the theory that there are fundamentally shared features between music and language that exist all across all human cultures, that suggest a shared cognitive or evolutionary origin. It bridges the study of linguistics and musicology to explore how both systems use rhythm, pitch, and structure to communicate emotional or social meaning. Noted scholars like Zoltan Kodály, Noam Chomsky, and Leonard Bernstein, along with many, many others, believe that the pentatonic scales are considered musico-linguistic universals, and that they were the foundation for many ancient traditions. Pythagoras is often given credit for discovering it, but it was already in use long before Pythagoras came along. To construct this scale, Pythagoras used the most fundamental intervals, the octave and the perfect fifth. He used a method of building a sequence of fifths, which would later be known as the Pythagorean circle, or circle of fifths. We will study this later on in the course. For now, it's enough to say he started on example C, went up a fifth to G, C, D, E, F, G. He went up another fifth, G, A, B, C, D. He went up another fifth, D, E, F, G, A, and one more fifth, A, B, C, D, E. And from this he produced the 5 notes of the major pentatonic scale, C, D, E, G, and A. While the pentatonic scale was used in many regions of music in this period, music was not exclusively pentatonic. Many systems used a 7-note scale. But here is a really good video, brief video, that explains what the pentatonic scale is. Please take time to watch this video. The end of the ancient era is known to Bible scholars as the Intertestamental period, roughly from 400 BC to 100 AD. Jewish worship during this time shifted from a singular focus on the Jerusalem temple to a more decentralized, community-based practice centered on the synagogue and Torah study. The vocal music was characterized by a transition from the elaborate professional music of the Second Temple, with thousands of singers and musicians, to the beginning of the synagogue's unaccompanied vocal traditions. The reading of Scripture, the law and prophets, was not spoken, but chanted or sung, a technique that became known as cantillation. It was a period marked by both joyous, instrumentally backed temple worship and later somber and a cappella styles, as the community grappled with foreign rule and the loss of the temple. The transition was driven by foreign occupations, the Jewish diaspora, and the rise of new religious sects. Worship transitioned from sacrificial rituals to a focus on prayer, scripture reading, and the study of the Torah. Distinct groups emerged with differing views on worship. The Pharisees focused on personal piety, strict adherence to the Torah, and oral traditions as well. The Sadducees, primarily composed of wealthy priestly class, focused on maintaining the temple and rejected the oral traditions. The Essenes were an aesthetic group that withdrew from the mainstream society to live in isolated communities, seeking ritual purity. There was also a great messianic hope that came from the constant foreign domination by Persians, Greeks, and Romans. The people were looking for a Messiah who could come and restore the nation and religious autonomy. The study of ancient musical instruments and forms reveals that music was fundamental to early human expression, serving crucial roles in ritual, communication, and social bonding for over thousands of years. Through the analysis of archaeological artifacts, such as bone flutes and lyres, we see a complex evolution from simple sound-making tools to refined instruments that bridge the gap between daily life and the divine. What a blessing and privilege we have to be part of this never-ending parade of praise. Well, that's the end of our lesson today. I hope it was a blessing to you.